Hi everyone. It's the end of another month, so that means it's time for another wrap up. Here's everything that I read in June. June was an interesting reading month for me. I'm filming this pretty early in the morning, so good morning. Here's a coffee. Drink a coffee along with me. We're gonna have a little chat about some books. June was an interesting reading month for me because I kind of rethought my approach to reading. And by that I mean I got really into audiobooks. Almost every book that I read this month, I read at least a portion of it through audio. Basically, I just searched for whatever I was reading through Libby and my local library, and if they had it on audiobook, I would download it and listen to it. It's great. I recommend checking out your library's audiobook selection and also ebook selection. Some of these were like these like big shadowhunters books. I would download the ebook of this. I would download the ebook of this as well, and then read most of it through the physical copy. But sometimes, like lying in bed, it was way easier to read on an e-reader. So I did that, and it's great. Just mix up the media. Who says you need to read the book the same way the whole way through? Like, pop in and out of audio, pop in and out of ebooks. Like, it's great. I loved it. Highly recommend. I'm gonna make a whole video about this later, I think, about like ebooks and audiobooks and my approach to reading. Another thing that I got really into this month is the Story Graph, which is a website. It's kind of like a Goodreads alternative. I'm obsessed with graphs and data, and it gives you so much information about your reading and the books you like and what you're focusing on. A lot more in depth than Goodreads does, and it's not owned by Amazon, so I've been really enjoying that website as well. All right, let's get into the books. I think I have 10 that I read this month. The first one is This Is Not the Jess Show by Carey. I read this one as an ebook. I got it from the library, I think. And it's an interesting one. This is a young adult novel about a girl in the 90s who one day her life kind of turns upside down. She notices there's some weird things going on in her town because something falls out of her friend's backpack that turns out to be an iPhone. And it's the 90s, so it's like, what's going on? This book was okay. I thought it was well done. I just didn't really like the story that much. It wasn't for me. It was pretty directly an interpretation of The Truman Show. After I finished reading the book, I went and rewatched that movie, and like, yeah, it's very, very, very similar. Even from the title, you can kind of draw those parallels yourself. And now, sorry for the spoiler, but you kind of know what the twist is. But we're okay now. Let's talk about the rest of the books. So next I read A Burning by Megha Majumdar. This was an interesting book. This is about a girl in India who is accused of being involved with a terrorist organization after there's a bombing on a train. And it kind of follows her through those accusations and into like the trial, as well as a few people connected to her. I didn't really know much about politics in India, so I feel like a lot of it was lost on me. But one character in this book is a trans woman, and I really liked following her and learning more about the trans experience in India. I thought it was really interesting. I thought that she was a really interesting character just on her own. She's kind of trying to be an actress, and the main character who was accused of the crime was teaching her English. And it's kind of about like this trans woman trying to be an actress and using her new skills that she learned, as well as it kind of follows the parents of the main character, as well as an old teacher. So yeah, I like this book. It's a gorgeous book. Like, isn't this beautiful? But yeah, I didn't love the book overall. It's really depressing. To be honest, it was a pretty depressing book. But I think it was definitely worth the read. Like, I'm not sad. I don't feel like I wasted my time or anything. It just wasn't really a book for me. But I'm glad. This is a book that I probably wouldn't have reached for if it wasn't recommended to me, and I'm glad that I tried something new. All right, next we have One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston. I'm not going to waste your time with a lengthy review. I did a whole video on this book alone already, but I loved this one. This was so good. This was the perfect read for Pride Month. August and Jane are like such amazing characters. This is about August, who moves to New York City and meets Jane on the subway. And it turns out Jane is from the 70s and has been stuck on this subway the whole time. Kind of like a ghost situation, kind of like a time traveling something. So it's kind of about them figuring out why this is happening, but it's mainly just about these characters living their lives and all of the like found family that they surround themselves with, and it's so cute. All of the characters are amazing. I just keep gushing about this book. This is so good. Read it right now. Go get it. Next, I read another sapphic story. This is How You Lose the Time War. It was written by Amal El-Mohtar and Max Gladstone. This is a weird one. I still like freaking don't know what happened in this book. It kind of melted my brain. There was so much going on. I need to read it like 4 more times to actually understand, but I really enjoyed it. It was a fun sci-fi adventure. This is about 2 time travelers from different like organizations going through and trying to win timelines for their side. So they would like go to historical events, kind of plant some seeds that would lead the course of history more in favor of one direction or the other, and then they kind of won that timeline. At least that's what I think was happening. I'm still not totally sure. There was like aliens involved, I think. At least one of them, maybe both of them were aliens. But it was also gay, and they fall in love through leaving like notes and teasing each other through time. It's like Killing Eve, but time traveling aliens. It was really cool. It's a really interesting, innovative, unique book. Definitely check this one out too. I'm gonna say check all of these books out, really. I loved, like, there's nothing I read this month that I didn't dislike. So, yeah, I recommend everything that I'm talking about in this video today. But that's This Is How You Lose the Time War. It was a quick book too. I read like an afternoon. Okay, next. This was probably my favorite book of the month. This is Pachinko by Min Jin Lee. This is a family saga. It spans almost 100 years, following a family from Korea that eventually immigrates to Japan. It follows 3 generations. We follow them all in chronological order. We start with like great-great-grandmother and work all our way down to the present, pretty much. This was a beautiful story. It was so beautifully written. I listened to this one a lot on audiobook. And the audiobook was really well done as well. Things that this book says about like finding your life's purpose and family duty and fate and luck and money were all so interesting. It was such a great way to look at the world, I thought. And the way that this family story gets kind of wrapped up at the end is so beautiful. I thought this was a stunning book. This is going to be a series on Apple TV, I think later this year, early next year. I'm really excited to see it. But yeah, this book was amazing. 5 out of 5 to Pachinko. So beautiful. Check it out if you can. I never know how in depth to go with my monthly wrap-ups. Like, I want to dive deep into the books, but I also don't want to spend too much time on each book and like make you bored. And I don't want to like go into spoiler territory either. So I think I'm going to start doing more one-off videos. I have a big plan of kind of revamping how I do the monthly wrap-up starting next month. It's going to take a bit more prep work, so I couldn't do it this month. But next month, I'm trying something new. So we'll see how that goes. But in the meantime, I still have a few more books to talk about. Next, I read this one here, Apartment by Teddy Wayne. Funny story about this book. I think I got this mixed up with another book or something. I don't know, but I thought this book was something totally different. I thought this was like a gay contemporary something. It's not. This is about heterosexuals, unfortunately, but it's still a good book. I was really pleasantly surprised with this one. It is. It takes place in the 90s. It's about a grad student at, I think, NYU, who is living in his great aunt's rent-controlled apartment, basically illegally. His name is not on the lease, but he needs to live there long enough that he can like fake some documents to inherit the building, basically, or inherit the unit. And while he's there, he invites a classmate to come live with him. And it's kind of about the differences between these two characters and privilege and family history, and how they're both kind of different ends of middle class, and how that affects them and how that kind of plays out, and is actually a much like wider gap than I think people think about, and it's about that gap specifically, especially in New York City. I thought this was a great book. It's about writing. They're both in like a creative writing program, so they're both working on like novels or longer pieces, kind of critiquing each other, and kind of how they critique each other and what criticisms they bring up also plays into that kind of privilege difference between the two of them. It was a really, really good book. The plot itself was not the most exciting, but it was the details in these two characters and how they interacted with each other that really made this book interesting to me. That's Apartment by Teddy Wayne. This was another short one. I read a lot of short books this month. Before I get to the last two, I'm going to quickly mention I read 3 Shadowhunters books this month. I read Lord of Shadows, Book 2 of the Dark Artifices, and Book 3, Queen of Air and Darkness. So that finished that trilogy. And then I started The Red Scrolls of Magic, which is a new trilogy, like a spin-off kind of about some side characters. I'm not going to go into these ones because I'm doing a whole reading vlog about the Shadowhunters books. Look for that soon. I only have 3 books left, so that'll probably be posted in July. And I am finally glad to be free of this challenge. I am really enjoying reading them, but committing to reading a series with like 20 plus books in it is exhausting. I'm ready to read something different. All right, the last 2 books I read, I have The Chosen and the Beautiful by Nghi. This is a retelling of The Great Gatsby, told from the perspective of Jordan Baker. In this book, Jordan Baker is a queer Vietnamese adoptee. She has some like sexual history with Daisy. And the interesting thing is there's like demons and spirits and deals with the devil going on. So I thought this was an interesting concept. It's like she's a queer witch or something. That's not really what this was. I don't understand why the demonic stuff needed to be in here in the first place. It didn't really fit with the story. So many chunks of this book were just like copied and pasted from The Great Gatsby. I think you could have left out the demon stuff because it was just kind of thrown in, like little sprinkled in to kind of make this world a bit more interesting, I guess. But it was just The Great Gatsby, and every once in a while they'd be like, and then we drank some demon blood. It's like, why? Like, what was the point? I don't understand. If you read this book and you see what the point of the demon stuff was, please let me know, because I keep thinking about it, and the more I think about it, the more I'm like, why? Like, why wasn't How the 20s actually was good enough for this commentary on culture in the 20s? I don't know. I'm glad that she was queer, though, and I really liked that they brought race more into the story. But unfortunately, this wasn't a win for me just because of how close it was to the original. And like, if you're gonna do a retelling, at least like change some more. Like, I wish there was more different, like more innovation taken here, not just some demon blood sprinkled in. All right, and the last book I read this month is Second Place by Rachel Cusk. It's the Summer of Cusk, I think, on BookTube / Bookstagram, Book Talk. A lot of people are reading this book. It's really short. I read this book in a day. This is about a woman who, we never learn her name, but she lives near the ocean, and she basically hosts an artist retreat in a cottage that's on her property, and she calls that place the Second Place. And this book is basically about her inviting an artist to come stay with her because she really likes his work. This is a very interesting character study. This is about a woman who, she kind of gains self-importance and feels good about herself by putting herself close to important artists and people who are actually doing creative things, where she just basically hangs out at her house all the time. So this artist shows up with an unexpected female guest. This kind of sends this woman into a tailspin, and things go from there. This was a really interesting book. It was a bit about art, but it was mainly about that feeling of someone seeing you for who you really are, and that kind of vulnerability and that feeling of exposure when you don't expect someone to see you that way, or kind of these walls we built around ourselves. And what happens when someone sees right through them. I thought it was great. I really liked this book. I've seen a lot of criticism about it too, but I liked it. I think this is a really special book. I think Rachel Cusk writes in such a way that it's almost like a meditation when you read her. She's pulling so many ideas and experiences from all over the place, and you kind of need to have your own experiences at the top of mind when you go into her book, so that as she's pulling things and going from kind of idea to idea so quickly, it's easy for you to kind of relate to your own experiences. You either need to read this book like one sentence at a time and put it down and think about it for a while, or plow through in like a fugue state. I don't really know how else to describe Rachel Cusk, but I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was a really great time. I read it in a day. I vlogged it. I think I'll post a vlog about this book soon. Anyway, that is what I read this month. I have so many books that I'm excited to read next month. This was a really good reading month for me. I feel kind of revitalized, recharged in my reading. I did hit, actually no, that was last month I think, that I hit my reading goal, but I'm not stressed about hitting goals anymore. I've left the Goodreads life behind me. I'm just reading what I feel like reading when I feel like it, and it's great. And listening to audiobooks when I'm too busy to look at a page. So yeah, let me know what you've read this month. What are you excited about for next month? Don't forget to subscribe for more videos. I have a whole bunch planned, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.